different over. He told me it's different over.
Are we ready to go? You ready? Okay.
But you can use the public.
Let's go ahead and call the meeting in order, please. This is the City of Canton Council meeting, December the 20th, 2018, the last meeting, hopefully, of the year. If you would, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Goodman?
Father, thank you for this evening. Thank you for the year and all of our citizens here. Thank you for the many blessings. And we want to remember your son, Jesus, who was the reason for this season. And we ask that you be with us throughout this meeting and just help us to make the best decisions for all the people that live here. All these things we pray in your name. Amen.
Amen. I'd like to welcome everyone here tonight and wish everyone a happy holidays and Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah and whatever other day you may celebrate this time of year. So it's a great time. It's a great time of year for everyone, I think. Happy holidays. And let's go ahead and get started with the first item on the agenda. Chief Mitchell, I believe you're up. November UCR and crime reports.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council, City Manager. The first report is our crime report from November of this year. And if you have it there before you, you can see that just under 2,000 calls for service. And you can see our arrests there, the 86. As you go down, our total traffic contacts, 519. Areas of concern from our crime and traffic data. Again, shoplifting. They were down again this month, and I think attributes to our efforts with our loss prevention in our stores here in the city. You have theft by taking cases, which 13, and then our traffic accidents were at 90, which was down from the month before. You see our strategies there where we do selective traffic enforcement operations, and also last month we did an operation with our stores when we took our bike units out and made contact with citizens, put out pamphlets as far as locking the vehicles up, not leaving items in vehicles, and had our bike officers patrol the area, just making good citizen contacts throughout and then our traffic enforcement, we have 2 scheduled for this month, selective enforcement operations, but of course our officers each month get this data to be able to focus and do direct patrols in the areas where we're having the most crime and crashes. So this month we had our Shop with Cop, which we were able to help out 28 families. We're going to do another 6, so for a total of 34 families here, hopefully before the first of the year. And we also had our Read with a Cop with our school tomorrow, and then we had our Coffee with a Cop last Thursday, well, the 13th. As you see there, we're still working, have some really good leads in our some robbery cases from months back at this point. Does anyone have any questions on this, the November report?
Anyone have a question?
Okay. Our total UCR, our uniform crime for the year, and then again just going through November, and it takes a snapshot from this month and year to date. Currently, our total violent crimes for the year is down 27.94%. Property crimes are down 7%, and then our total property one crimes, part 1 crimes, are down. Overall crime is down 9.55%. So, and even showing that our accidents are down just under 6.5%. So, I think directly attribute to the hard work of our officers and the good relationship that we've established, partnerships with our citizens that in the city. So we've got 2 weeks left, so hopefully I don't want to speak too soon, but hopefully we can definitely continue this trend into the next year. Okay. That's all I have. Anyone else? Question? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Thank you. Okay, consideration to approve the agenda. Are there any changes, additions, or anything to be made to the agenda? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Mr. Yon made the motion. Mr. Estes seconded that motion. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All members voting for the motion. Didn't sound like it, but it did. Okay. You have in your agenda package the special meetings from the special call council meeting of November the 15th, the special call council meeting of November the 28th, and the council meeting of December the 6th, 2018. Are there any corrections to be made to those? Okay, if not, I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes as presented. Okay, we'll have a second. Okay, Mr. Goodman made the motion. Mr. Estes seconded. Oh, you weren't at that meeting. Okay, do we have someone else?
Second.
Mr. Yon made the second. Okay, then you'll abstain from that. Those. Okay. Well, were you absent in all of them, or were you? Are you absent?
I was absent in A and B, 5A and 5B.
Okay, then you can. Okay, we're going to vote on 5A and 5B first. Okay, and Mr. Estes can participate in that. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Okay, and on C, I need a motion to approve that one. Okay, do I have a second? Okay, Mr. Goodwin seconded that motion. Ms. McGrew made the motion. That's the council meeting draft minutes from December the 6th. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. Okay. All members voting for the motion with the exception of Mr. Grant, who abstained. Okay. All right, 10-minute public input period. Mr. Weaver.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, my name is Thomas Weaver. I reside at 131 Old Marietta Road, Canton, Georgia. Thank you. And first, let me extend to each of you and each member present a warm Merry Christmas. It's my hope that each member of your household and yourselves are able to enjoy the holidays however you choose to celebrate them. Thank you. I wanted to speak just in brief. I know we have a heavy lift, a lot of things under review for second reading and reconsideration tonight, but on item 8J, the one that I had requested regarding the opportunity for citizen input. Moving forward as we've moved and transition into 2019, I'm very appreciative of the mayor and council's guidance in directing the city attorney to prepare the ordinance. I reviewed it on the hyperlink for the Canton Legistar website. I'm satisfied that it remedies the concern that I had. The only ask that I would ask of each of you when you review that later in the meeting this evening is whether or not you wanted to include in the motion any conforming language to clean up the internal council policy procedures manual. I don't know if it would be necessary. I revert back to what the city attorney did suggest during the work session, where anything in the ordinance would supersede the council policy anyway. I just, as a matter of conformity, if you would just like to insert the 10-day rule there too, that way it would just match. It would be my ask, but I don't know if it's necessary or not legally, but just would like for you to take that into consideration, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving forward, our consent agenda. These are the items on our consent agenda, and I will read each one, and if there's any that you would like to pull off of that consent agenda for further discussion, these are all items that we have spent quite a bit of time on previously. So item A, approval of resolution to transmit the annual update of capital improvements element and 5-year short-term work plan for Canton's impact fee program. B, approval of Planning Commission recommendation to amend UDC Chapter 105 to add public hearing for council meeting. Item C, approval of the Atkins change order on the State Route 20 utility relocation plan. D, approval of proposed impact fee fund budget amendment, use of impact fees for the new police department fence. E, approval of adopting a resolution to accept the terms and conditions of the contract for the state grant in the amount of to construct a concrete trail within Etowah River Park. Item F, approval of request for extended work hours by Canton Mill Ventures, LLC and Reformation Brewery at 141 Railroad Street. Item G, approval of 2019 council meeting dates. Are there any of you need any of those pulled off for further discussion? Okay.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Ms. McGrew made a motion to approve. Mr. Grant seconded that motion. Any other discussion? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All members voting for the motion. Under old business, discussion and possible action on Canton 2040 Comprehensive Plan 10-year update. Mr. Patton.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, council members. This was discussed at a all work session. Staff addressed all of the comments that the City Council requested. We went over those at the last work session. I'm here to answer any questions. Brittany, who was the project manager and the author of this document, is here also.
Okay. Any questions, comments?
Nice job.
Okay.
Very good.
Motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Okay. Mr. Grant made the motion. Mr. Goodman seconded that motion. Any other discussion? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All members voting for the motion. Item B, discussion and possible action on capital improvements element of Canton 2040 Comprehensive Plan 10-year update.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, council members. Again, this was discussed at 2 work sessions, City Council. I'm here to answer any questions any of you might have in regards to the capital improvements element.
Any questions?
Motion to approve. Second.
Mr. Grant made the motion to approve. Mr. Young seconded the motion. Any other questions or discussion? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All members voting for the motion. Item C, discussion and possible action of case AX 1801-001 requested by Perilous Niece, LLC, to annex 42.07 acres located at 2241, 2243, and 2247, and 2249 Cumming Highway.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, council members. This has been an ongoing annexation and zoning request for that property on the north side of Highway 20, going back to January of this year. I'm here to answer any questions you might have in regards to the annexation of this property.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Attorney.
We've had some discussion among staff about one issue that I would like some direction from council, assuming you're going to annex it.
Okay.
Is there's one alcohol outlet in the annexed area. We have traditionally, by practice, brought the first license. When a location is first becoming a license, we vote on it at the City Council, but that would mean that that location had to wait a month and would be shut down for a month from serving alcohol. I would request that you allow the staff to handle that administratively. The location has already passed the county and the state location requirements, which are similar to ours. So there's really no reason to hold that up.
That makes sense. Okay.
So if the motion to approve the annexation would just include allowing the staff to administratively handle transfer of license.
Is that Newts?
I don't know what it was.
Newts.
It's Your Pie.
Your Pie.
It's which one?
Your Pie is the name of the restaurant that alcohol license.
It hasn't opened yet, but they've already got all their licensing, and they're finishing out their construction now.
Okay, so a month may not have mattered,
but would, in other words, we would ask though that they go ahead and they're not going to use a county license for the next year? Or?
No. We're also going to be dealing with occupational tax permits and adjustments, and I think we're just give them credit for whatever.
Yeah.
With alcohol, it actually terminates at the end of the year, right? So they may have paid a fee, and our ordinance actually addresses this, that if they've paid the county fee, they get credit for that.
Yeah, okay.
But that one actually goes January 1st, so it actually works out nicely for us on that.
That makes sense. Okay. Any other discussion or questions about the annexation of the 42.07 acres? This is the property across from Canton Marketplace on the north side of State Route 20. If not, I'll entertain a motion to annex that property.
Motion to annex.
Second.
Okay, Ms. McGrew made the motion.
And staff needs to deal with the alcohol license.
Administratively dealing with the alcohol license for the one restaurant there. And Mr. Yon seconded the motion. Any other discussion or questions? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All members voting for the motion. Now, the next one is basically the same property regarding the zoning of case Z 1801-001 for Peerless Niece LLC requesting to zone 16.52 acres as R40 and to zone 25.55 acres as GC. Now,
that is correct, Mr. Mayor. The Planning Commission did make that recommendation. Those acreage amounts, especially the 16.55 acres that stayed as R40, was part of an agreement between the developer and Cherokee County as a transition buffer between the commercial and the adjacent residential subdivision in unincorporated Cherokee County. That R40 zoned or requested zone property contains stormwater drainage, and it has all of the landscape trees that were required, part of the timbering operation for the development of that center.
so what is the purpose of changing, of having the zoning R40 though? I guess as opposed to general commercial. I mean, it doesn't make it any more usable one way or the other, does it?
It would comply with, if you will, an agreement that was made with Cherokee County to keep that property as R40 as a buffer protection for the adjacent residential subdivision.
So are we saying that it could not be developed?
Basically, yes, sir.
I mean, well, I'd like for you to take that basically out of it. Tell me whether or not it can be developed.
Because the stormwater drainage, because of the slope, and because of all of the landscape materials that were planted within that 16 acres, it is my opinion that that property could not be developed.
So could there then be a condition to that effect that that 16 acres serve as a buffer between the commercial and the residential?
If I'm not mistaken, the applicant would prefer it stay as R40 because of the difference in taxes, property taxes, that would be assessed from general commercial to R40 for property that would not be developed.
So,
and the applicant is here if you want to ask that question.
So, do you think the taxes would be? You think the taxes, if it were general commercial, yet conditioned as a buffer, which means you can't build on it, I assume. You think the taxes would be less that way, or R40 without that condition? I'm
not an appraiser. You are. You could answer that question better.
I think I can
than me,
answer
Mr.
that
Mayor.
question, but I'd like to know. I'd like to hear it from somebody else. Anyone else have any comments on that? I mean, right now there's a 50-foot buffer between this R40 and the. So there'd only be 50 foot of the R40 that is technically a buffer right now between this property and Brook Park.
Correct. By our regulations.
By our regulations.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The retention pond is on those 16 acres?
Correct.
How many acres does that, how much space does that take up?
What's the size of that retention pond?
It's a little over 1.5 acres, the actual retention pond, but there's easements to get for access and for conveyance to the retention pond in the rear.
Okay. So the request for that 16 acres as R40, is it primarily for the tax advantages?
But it's primarily because that's what the zoning is currently in Cherokee County. We had to rezone a portion of this property to get it to be GC, actually almost all of it. It was all residential at one time. We had never represented that we wanted to develop that back half as R40. I'm I'm sure we're all familiar with the history of some of the parcels adjacent to that next to the Brook Park subdivision. When those tried to be converted from neighborhood commercial to general commercial, it was never able to be done. I don't even think this board allowed that to be done there at that time, and that would essentially be doing the same thing with this back parcel that's essentially undeveloped. It's not our intention to rezone that to general commercial. We would like to leave it exactly as we rezoned it in Cherokee County 3+ years ago.
Would you be willing to consider a 100-foot buffer from Brook Park property line?
I'd prefer not to encumber the property with any other conditions or buffers other than what's currently in the code that we're meeting now. I just don't see that there's a need to add additional restrictions for what's already in place now.
Well, I guess my only thought is if we were annexing property in, if all that property were residential, I'm not sure we'd be annexing it in. Maybe we might, but so essentially we're annexing in, 16.5 acres of residential property that could be developed theoretically, because they can develop any of it. I mean, you can develop it. Now that's a decision the council will make as to if they wanted to annex in 16.5 acres of residential property in addition to the commercial. The advantage, obviously, of annexing in the commercial is that while we are giving concessions, for sure we're going to get tax money ultimately that will compensate for the tap fees that we are reducing substantially, I think.
And I understand that, but I also think that the calculations we presented with the taxes were not inclusive of what that R40 is. And I do think that if the intention was to bring it all in as general commercial and we had advertised that with the public hearings earlier on in this process, there would have been a much stronger public turnout in relation to that, just because this is not really part of the center. If you're familiar, it's kind of a flag that sticks up by itself. It's literally surrounded on all three sides by residential properties, half of which is Brook Park. Mm-hmm. I just can't see rezoning it R4 or from R40 to general commercial for the sake of doing it at this time.
Okay. Anyone have any thoughts?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Goodman made the motion to approve. Mr. Estes seconded. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. All members voting for the motion. Okay. Item E, discussion and possible action of the Planning Commission recommendation for case MP 1810-001 for a TPA Group, LLC, to amend the master plan for the Bluffs to approve townhomes in Pod B.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. This was discussed at the work session meeting. This is a request to amend the master plan for the Bluffs to allow townhomes to be built on approximately 17 acres where the existing residential structure that has been sitting vacant for a number of years is located. Planning Commission did recommend approval of the amendment to the master plan.
Okay. Any discussion?
Motion to approve.
We have a second.
Second.
Mr. Estes made the motion. Mr. Goodman seconded. Any discussion? Do we know the square footage of these townhomes, or
if I'm not mistaken, in the application, it talks about 1,800 square feet.
Okay. Any other questions or anything? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All members voting for the motion. All right. Discussion and possible action. Planning Commission recommendation for case CUP 1810-001 for TPA requesting approval for development townhomes Pod B. This is the conditional use permit that's required. Is there a motion to approve that?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. Ms. McGrew made the motion. Mr. Yon seconded that motion. Any other discussion? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All members voting for the motion. Item G, discussion and possible action on the award of a task order contract to Black and Veatch. Mr. Peppers. Or
Mr. Hatabian.
Oh, Mr. Hatabian.
Yeah, this was The purpose of this contract was to fast-track a couple of the projects that Black & Veatch recommended in their water master plan. Specifically, which we want to get started, as soon as we can, is a new tank and booster station in Laurel Canyon. It's pretty critical at this point. There are homes that are being developed that have virtually no water pressure because they're at the same elevation as the Great Sky Tank, so that the developer is putting in individual booster stations. But the master plan showed that we needed a tank and another station there as well. So we wanted to get a task order agreement in place and then come back with these individual projects. And the reason we want to do Black & Veatch is, they can hit the ground running. They've done all the background work. They've run the model. There's very little of a learning curve for them. So,
okay. Any questions or comments, discussion?
So the intention would be that have the task order in place for the new tank and.
Well, we'll come back with the individual task order. This is a non-monetary. This is just the agreement with all the terms and conditions, and then we would bring back an individual task order to do the design on the individual projects.
But you could do the same thing even if you didn't have a task order, right?
We could, but then you'd have to have an individual contract where now for each assignment. Now it's under this task order agreement, and we can give them a task order. They'll come back with the scope and price, and it'll be all subject to the terms and conditions of it. And it's essentially our standard professional services agreement.
Okay.
Yeah, I understand. I just wondered, like the new tank and that project, what the potential cost of that.
Off the top of my head, I don't remember. I know it was outlined in the master plan. We have met with the developer of Laurel Canyon and about land and possible assistance in working with those. So,
I mean, I'm sure we would just look at that cost when that did come up. In case that would be something we would want to bid out.
The construction will obviously be bid out. I think the engineering is relatively. I don't want to say cheap, but it's not much in the grand scheme of things.
Okay. Thank you.
This may be jumping ahead to the next meeting, but on the tank, what was the deal many years ago that there was going to be a water tank up there, and the developer was supposed to build that at the time, and that didn't happen for some reason, and I can't remember exactly why that didn't happen.
That was before my time. But I do know that the site that it was proposed on is actually outside of that whole Laurel Canyon Soleil area now. I think where Black & Veatch proposed it is it's close to it, but it's still within the confines of Laurel Canyon. And the other benefit of this tank, it will allow us to do maintenance on the Great Sky Tank. Right now, Laurel Canyon is supplied from Great Sky. And I don't believe the pumps that feed the Great Sky Tank are big enough to get over all the hills in Laurel Canyon. So we can set it up with a new booster station and a new tank where we can take down the Great Sky Tank for, we have to do a washout at one of these times, and ultimately we have to be repainted. So it gives us a lot more flexibility in terms of operation and maintenance of our tanks.
Are we tied into the Waleska system up there?
We pump from the Great Sky pump station to the Waleska tank.
So could that Waleska tank serve Laurel Canyon any?
No. That serves the Waleska.
Any other questions, comments, motions?
Motion to approve.
You have a second?
Second.
Okay. Mr. Grant made the motion. Mr. Young seconded that motion. Any other questions or comments? If not, All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. All members voting for the motion.
Thank you.
Okay. Item H, discussion and possible action on the award of the sanitary sewer rehabilitation project to KAM Contracting Southeast, LLC, in the amount of $2,888,861.
Yeah, it was bid. They were the low bidder. It's for all the I&I program work that was done. I know some of the amounts were over, say, for example, in the stormwater on the budget that was available. But keep in mind that this is a unit price contract, and it's based on these estimated quantities that we may or may not see all these quantities. So the price could fluctuate one way or another. We also have, I forget how much money in owner's allowance allocated for the stormwater side as well as the sewer side that we may or may not use. So that number, could go either way, and most likely it may go down unless we decide we want to do some more work. So
what actual area does that cover? Or is that just particular one area?
It's pretty much in the downtown area and a little bit on the outskirts. I know there's some work down along the river by the mill, but it's primarily in and around the downtown area. And I know the term of it, I think we talked about doing a 2-year time period. So we have these prices locked in for 2 years, which is good. And the reason for that was to allow for coordination of disruption in downtown to try to minimize construction for the businesses in downtown. So they may have to, either work off hours or may have to do some at some point and wait for, say, the summer to get over with before they go back or whatever. So
I would mention, too, that I believe it was last year, Main Street was in the initial list of paving projects, and we actually pulled it out of the paving schedule knowing that we were going to have these I&I improvements because we didn't want to pave it and then have to go back and repave it after these projects were done. So, we're going to have to be flexible on that SPLOST side, too, for paving when these projects are done, knowing that we've got to put that street back into the circulation for paving.
So if that, in fact, that is the case, if we end up doing SPLOST to do the paving, then this project will go down because I think it's set up as whatever the patching is on some of those projects. So so some of that money may not be used.
Okay. Is the contract, are we obligated to, what's the time frame of the contract, and are we obligated to?
I think we gave them two years.
Okay.
So the prices, all these unit prices are held for 2 years.
Okay. How long do you anticipate the project to take?
If we could just start to finish, probably, if I was going to guess, I'd probably say 9 months. Okay. But we just allowed for all the downtown work and any other work that we may want to add on if we have budget available.
I do think it's opportunity. Mr. Peppers mentioned paving in Main Street, and I know we've had conversations in the past, and the master plan, discussed potential of one ways versus two ways, and we've had some conversations of, should sidewalks be widened or you potentially make those 2 one ways, one lane, possibly controlled. But I think this would be an opportunity if we're doing major construction downtown to look at some of those things and have a plan in place so that we could do that work simultaneously. And I would just want to make sure that there was enough time in there once we started this work to have that plan in place as well. So,
I would think so. In 2 years, I think we should be able to come up with something.
Okay. I'm not saying that we would do any of that, but
yeah, sure.
I wouldn't want to start and then have to redo it at some point in the near future.
Any other?
So I understand that it's a unit cost bid, and then there's some assumptions on what the quantities are to get to the 2.8, 2.9 million. What's the kind of approach and protocol for things coming in higher? If we say
in terms of quantities.
Yeah.
They're just paid for the quantities that are installed. Yeah, you may overrun some, you may underrun some, and with every monthly, pay app, we'll have a running total of where we stand overall. And like I say, I want to say there's $600,000 or $700,000 in owner's allowances that can only be spent if we say, okay, go ahead and do that. And so, for example, if you end up overrunning one of these line items, we could say, all right, we'll use some of this allowance item to take care of that overrun. So.
Anyone else?
I was just going to mention, too, if you'll recall, when we did the I&I study, Brown and Caldwell had listed out projects on a 1 to 5 scale, with 5 being the worst.
Mm-hmm.
And so my assumption is going to be that we're going to tackle those 5s first.
Yes, these are all the worst of the worst.
And then, it may be as we get moving on the project that some of those that are not as bad we just abandon
Mm-hmm.
based on the amount of work that we are able to do on those 5s.
Okay. Anyone else? Do we have a motion to approve the award of the sanitary sewer rehabilitation project to CAM Contracting for $2.88 million?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Goodwin made the motion. Mr. Estes seconded that motion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All members voting for the motion.
All right, thank you.
Item I, a discussion of Cobb County Marietta Water Authority request to amend joint project agreement for Hickory Log Reservoir. I believe we sort of resolved that direction that we're going to take from our work session earlier. Mr. Peppers?
So staff will bring back more information to council probably to the second meeting in January as an informational item, and then based on that, we'll get it on the agenda for February for possible action.
Okay, sounds good. Everybody in accord with that? Okay, item J, discussion and possible action of public agenda item request ordinance. And I believe our public input also asked if there was a need in this to maybe amend the conflict with our policy manual, which I'd probably be automatic, I guess. But anyway, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you just may want to state in the motion that a copy of this ordinance will be added in a policy form to the council policy to replace the existing policy.
I had a question on this. On the ordinance, it says, a copy of the agenda and a list of those council members present shall be made available to the public for inspection days of the adjournment of any meeting. That should be minutes, shouldn't it?
No.
Why wouldn't you already have? It's already available.
In case it had been amended at the meeting, you make the agenda available because you don't have minutes in 2 days, but it's two. Somebody comes and says, well, did you amend the agenda? You have to go ahead and make that available to them. Things were struck, tabled, whatever you did, added.
That just seemed a little odd there.
Yeah, that's the only thing that changed was 5 to 10. So, and it actually was business days before that question had come up. It was 5 business days, so that would put it at Thursday, the week before. So we're going from Thursday to Monday.
Right, backing up to Monday.
Right.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions?
Motion approved with a simultaneous update to the policy manual.
We have a second.
Second.
Okay. Mr. Grant made the motion. Ms. McGrew seconded that motion. Any other questions or comments? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All members voting for the motion. Okay, Mr. Peppers.
Yes, sir. I believe I had emailed you to let you know that we had a meeting on Monday with Advanced Disposal. We met with our sales representative that got us on that prepared the bid for that contract. As part of that meeting, we set up a meeting for tomorrow at 10 a.m. where we're meeting with the district operations director to talk about some service issues that we've had and address those issues individually. I am happy to report that between Tuesday and today, we got about 450 recycling carts delivered throughout the city as part of our ongoing process to add more recycling carts out there for our customers. And I believe we have another shipment of carts that have also come in
that'll be distributed as well. It appears at this time that our biggest issues remaining, aside from recycling, are issues related to backdoor service or off-street service, where we have some issues on locations and pickups, their guidelines versus what our traditional operations have been. Bulk pickups, which have been scheduled through their customer call center, have had some communications issues back to their staff on actual retrieval. So that's one item that we're working on. And then the last item are specific key addresses where we have an issue with service, missed service at a specific address for whatever reason. And so those will be the main three topics that we cover tomorrow with that group. The only other item I have is just a reminder that, City Hall will be closed next Monday and Tuesday for the Christmas holiday, and also a reminder that the following week, City Hall will be closed on Monday and Tuesday. We'll be observing our Veterans Day, which occurred on Sunday this year, on Monday. Staff will be taking that Monday off ahead of New Year's, and so we'll be closed Monday and Tuesday next week, and then Monday and Tuesday the following week. But I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about any items. Yes, ma'am.
I've seen some pictures of damaged trash bins. Are they being replaced in a timely manner?
Yes, ma'am. And that was another item that we had discussed with them. It appears that when they use the mechanical arm to empty, based on how they grab the cart, when they go to put it back down, there's some type of torque with the lid that's causing some damage. And so that's one of the items that we're going to discuss with them as well.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I got one.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I have been bombarded with calls, people with all different types of problems on this trash service. And I don't know, it's just all over the board. And it's a lot of the people are the same people, but there are different ones as well. This meeting is kind of quick for them to know about it. I just wondered if the public could, if we could have one later on where the public could have some notice on this, because I'm just finding out this, maybe you announced it and I didn't hear it before, but I'm getting calls about people that don't get their trash picked up, and then we send somebody over and finally get it done, but it happens over and over and over and over again. You would think after 3 or 4 times they would figure that out. Even my own, trash cans are in the woods, they're in the road, they're in my driveway, they're, just all over the place. It doesn't seem, maybe that's because they got mechanical arms and not people that are actually doing this. I don't know, but it seems that they're in such a big hurry to get it done that they aren't doing it correctly. I had one call last week that I don't know if we sent someone over, but I think it was their truck that was sent over, and they said this thing looked like something that came out of the Beverly Hillbillies. It was a truck with some kind of a sheet over the back of it. The guy came out, threw half of it on the ground, cussing and raising Cain, and then put the rest of it in and left. It's not been the kind of service that we've ever had in my 11 years. I just don't know. I think those people would like to come and discuss this, but is there going to be another meeting later on?
Well, tomorrow's meeting is the first staff level meeting we've been able to have with district operations. And so ultimately, the contract, the customer is our customer. We just contract out the service. And so what we're trying to do is make sure that they understand from an operational standpoint that there are issues, and that those issues are at a level where the city is very concerned. It's not a transitional issue anymore. It's not, you can't blame it on, not having great records when you got started. These issues are operational issues that need to be addressed and need to be addressed with the drivers and through the routes. And so, I'd be open to suggesting to them that perhaps we have some type of town hall meeting set up where people can come in and meet with them, or have a way to communicate with them about their specific issues.
I think that would be a good idea because I've had a lot of people say, I call them and I get no response. I get the same thing again, over and over. At least let them have their say to someone higher up, and maybe something would get done about it. The service itself, it happens every week from my place, but it doesn't happen every week from other people's. And I'm fielding a lot of calls, more than I've ever done with any other service we've had. I think a town hall type meeting would be better.
Okay. Anyone else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the mayor's report, the nominations for appointment of committees, and nominations and/or appointments, as the case may be. Some of these are, a couple are at least mayoral appointments, but I still want to include the council in these decisions. The Canton Development Authority, there is one appointment, and I would like to reappoint Mike Chapman to that, nominate him. Board of Zoning Appeals, Harry Johnson has resigned, becoming our new commission chair. His term was to end 12/31/20. I'd like to nominate David Johnson for that. The Canton Housing Authority, I would like to appoint Mr. Kendall Jones with Must Ministries. The Impact Fee Advisory Committee, these are annual appointments. I'm not recommending that we reappoint any of the Impact Fee Advisory since, as we mentioned at the last meeting, that this is something, I don't even think they know when they met last, and so we really don't need them. We don't need any more committees than we have, than really going to be producing something, doing something for us, productive. Historic Preservation Commission is one full-term appointment to replace Harry Johnston again. To appoint Dr. Mark Roberts of Reinhardt University. That's a 3-year term. The Canton Tree Commission, there's one reappointment and one replacement. The reappointment would be Regine Cordery. I'd recommend her. And there was these, I am told, must live in the city for Canton tourism. Now, someone had mentioned Katie Ross. Was that you? Does she live in the city, or do you know?
She does not.
Does not. Okay. Well, if I find out that she is not required, I'm understanding that tourism has to live in the city. Do you remember?
Tree Commission.
Tree Commission. Do you recall that? Okay. Well, we'll appoint her if she's qualified to do that. Okay. She's with Night Song Native Plants, I believe, which would be a great appointment, I think, really, if we can get her on there. Okay. I'd also like to appoint one council member to serve as an ex officio member, and I'd like to ask Wilson, since she's not here, to serve in that capacity. In tourism, there's two appointments. They're annual appointments. Joyce Swindell and Francis Vaughn resigned, and one of those I'd like to appoint or nominate Sherry Cloud to serve in that capacity. And there's still one other, so if anyone has any thoughts on that, on the tourism. Canton Preservation, Inc., this is another one that has 3 members. I'm not recommending we make any appointments, so that one can fade away, hopefully, and if we find sometime in the future that it's needed, we can reconstitute that organization. Canton Main Street Board, 3 appointments. Well, originally it was 3 appointments. Ray DeLuca, reappointments, I'm sorry. Ray DeLuca, Corey Wilson, and Jeff Brown. And I would like to add to that Jamie Foreman. Also, I'd like to appoint to that organization Sharon Ware to replace Mickey Farley, who resigned, and she will, Ms. Ware will serve the unexpired term ending 12/31/20. And I'd also like to add another. Pat Gold has, since she no longer works with the city, wanted to stay involved, and so I'd like to nominate her to replace Megan Quinlan, who resigned, and that would be to fill Megan's term ending 12/31/20. Stormwater Advisory Board, annual appointments. I'd like to reappoint all members to that, with the exception of Barbara Holloway, and I am awaiting a replacement nomination for her. She was absent considerably into that organization. That's all the nominations that I have at this time. Are there any others that you would like to?
Excuse me.
Yes, ma'am.
For Main Street, I don't know how many board positions there are, but I know that Ashley Carlisle is interested in serving on the board.
Okay, I don't know her, but we can get her on there if that's
Okay.
Someone you feel comfortable with.
I don't know her, but she knows the board, and she's talked with board members.
I'll tell you what I'll do, if it's okay with you. Since these are mayoral appointments, if you get me her contact information, I will contact her and talk to her and get her interest in all that, and then I can put her on at any time.
I'll be glad to get that.
That work okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anything else? Okay.
I had one thing.
Yes.
I had mentioned this previously before. I would like to see all of these boards and commissions and everything listed on our website so the public is aware of what commissions and boards and everything we have and their functions.
That's a good idea.
And even the members that are appointed so they know who to contact for those.
The boards are listed, their terms are listed. I don't know if the description of the function is listed.
Well, that'd be good if we could do that.
We can come up with a
too.
descriptor to add to those, but I do know that the boards and terms are on there.
I hadn't stumbled across that then.
And whatever their mission, maybe a mission statement or whatever function is.
Okay, that was all I had.
And on top of that, we may want to add when they meet, when their regular meetings are, so if somebody wants to attend.
Yeah, that might be kind of hard on some of them, but some of them are regular meetings. So, okay, do I have a motion to approve the nominations?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All members voting for the motion. Thank you. All right. I believe that is all we have, with the exception of our executive session. There is a possibility that we could come back out, although it depends on the discussion. It may or may not. So it'll be up to you to decide if you want to stay for a while or not. But we will be discussing personnel, real estate, and litigation. Do we have a motion to go into executive session for that purpose? Mr. Goodwin made the motion. Mr. Grant seconded that motion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. No? Okay.
Yeah, me too.